Fort Lauderdale's luxury high-rise market has more variety than any other segment of the area. The difference between a strong building and a weak one may not necessarily be visible in photos. It shows up in the documents. In this video, we're going over what separates a strong Fort Lauderdale luxury high-rise from one that's going to cost you, the 5 questions every condo buyer must ask before making an offer, what the Post-Surfside legislation has revealed about specific buildings, and what the best performing buildings in this market actually look like from the inside. My name is Steve McAleer. I've been selling real estate in Fort Lauderdale for 20 years, completed over 600 transactions in this market, and I work with The Agency, one of the premier luxury brokerages in the country. The luxury condo market in Fort Lauderdale attracts a specific buyer: the snowbird who wants a lock-and-leave property, the executive who's establishing Fort Lauderdale domicile before going full-time, the Northeast transplant who wants a waterfront residence without the maintenance responsibility of a single-family home. If that's your profile, this video is built for you. The most important thing I tell condo buyers in this market is this: the unit itself is almost irrelevant until you actually analyze the building itself. A beautiful unit in a poorly managed building is a liability. A modest unit in a well-run building is an asset. The building comes first, always. The 5 characteristics that define a strong luxury high-rise in Fort Lauderdale in 2026 are reserve funding status, structural inspection outcome, management quality, the ratio of owner-occupied to investor-rented units, and the HOA's track record on special assessments. Reserve funding may be the most important financial metric in a Florida condo purchase today. After Florida's Post-Surfside legislation, many condominium associations are now required to complete structural integrity reserve studies and fully fund certain reserve components identified by those studies. The long-standing practice of voting reserves down is no longer available for many buildings. A well-funded reserve account generally reflects stronger long-term planning and may reduce the likelihood of future surprises. A significant reserve shortfall can create pressure for higher monthly fees, special assessments, loans, or a combination of all 3. Before falling in love with a unit, review the building's reserve position, SIRS report, meeting minutes, inspections, and pending projects. Your realtor and attorney should be identifying these issues early, before contingency periods expire. Milestone inspection results are becoming a major factor in Florida condo valuation. Buildings that have completed inspections without significant structural concerns generally present less uncertainty than buildings still undergoing inspections or facing identified remediation. Buyers increasingly view completed inspections, reserve planning, and resolved structural issues as reducing future financial risk. As the market becomes more educated, buildings with fewer unknowns may see stronger demand relative to those with unresolved inspection issues. Management quality shows up in the details: the cleanliness of the common areas, the responsiveness of the management team, the maintenance cycle of shared amenities, the financial statements. All of these are legible indicators of how a building is being run. A building where the gym equipment is consistently out of service, where the lobby needs attention, where the pool deck shows deferred maintenance. These are not just cosmetic issues. They are signals of management culture, and management culture is the primary predictor of how a building handles the larger decisions around reserves, assessments, and long-term maintenance planning. The owner-occupancy ratio affects 2 things directly. First, buildings with higher investor-rented unit percentages tend to have more variable resident populations and less stable social environments, a factor that matters significantly for buyers who are choosing a high-rise for lifestyle and community rather than purely investment. Second, buildings with very low owner-occupied ratios can lose Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac financing eligibility, which narrows the pool of future buyers if you choose to sell, and can affect your unit's liquidity in ways that non-warrantable buildings handle poorly in a softening market. Rather than ranking specific buildings, let me give you the characteristics to look out for so that you can evaluate any building with the same framework. Many of the Florida condo buildings performing best in today's market share several characteristics: newer construction, stronger reserve positions, completed inspections, and professional long-term management. Buildings developed after 2000 genuinely have less accumulated deferred maintenance than older coastal inventory, and often benefit from the most modern engineering, waterproofing, and business standards. In Fort Lauderdale, several luxury towers completed during the 2000s and 2010s have continued to attract strong buyer demand because they combine contemporary construction, premium locations, and more predictable capital capital planning. In Fort Lauderdale's luxury condo market, buildings located directly on or adjacent to the Intracoastal Waterway have generally demonstrated stronger buyer demand than comparable inland luxury towers. Waterfront positioning creates a scarcity factor that many high-rise buyers prioritize for both lifestyle and long-term value perception. Ocean or intracoastal views, water access, and proximity to Las Olas consistently rank among the most desired features for a luxury condo purchaser, and those attributes often contribute to stronger pricing resilience and buyer interest relative to non-waterfront inventory in the same submarket. Many branded residential buildings have performed well in the luxury market because they combine premium positioning, professional management structures, and hospitality-driven operational standards from the outset. Projects associated with established luxury hotel or lifestyle brands often benefit from the stronger service consistency, amenity maintenance, and global buyer recognition. In Fort Lauderdale and South Florida, buyers frequently perceive established branded residences as offering greater predictability and resale appeal compared with non-branded luxury towers. However, buyers should still independently evaluate reserve funding, governance, insurance exposure, inspections, and long-term financial planning, as branding alone does not eliminate building-specific risks. Full-service buildings with concierge, valet, and dedicated security have maintained their premium relative to the broader condo market. For the buyer profile that's drawn to Fort Lauderdale's luxury high-rises, the lock-and-leave buyer, the buyer establishing residency from out of state, the full-service infrastructure is not an amenity preference. It's the functional requirement. These buildings also tend to attract higher occupancy ratios because the lifestyle they deliver is most valuable to residents rather than renters. And really quickly, if you're evaluating this condo market, I've put together a great resource for you. It's called the Fort Lauderdale Home Buyer Guide. Inside includes information on every neighborhood, every price point, what to buy, what to consider, and how to move here without second-guessing yourself. It's totally free. The link is in the description. Here are the 5 questions I require before I let a buyer put an offer on a luxury condo. These are non-negotiable, and it doesn't matter how compelling the actual unit is. Question 1. What is the building's current reserve funding percentage relative to the required level under the Structural Integrity Reserve Study? If the answer is below 70%, you need to understand what the plan is to close that gap and what it's going to cost the unit owners. If the seller or listing agent can't answer that question or doesn't have the reserve study available, that's a red flag that requires resolution before you proceed. Question 2. What is the status of the building's milestone structural inspection? For any buildings 30 years or older, and several of Fort Lauderdale's most desirable older buildings fall into this category, this report must exist and must be available. Has a Phase 2 inspection been required? What did it find? What remediation, if any, has been ordered, and what's the timeline and cost? A clean Phase 1 with no Phase 2 required is the answer you want. Anything else requires careful review by your attorney before you proceed. Question 3. What special assessments have been levied in the past 5 years, and what assessments are pending or anticipated? Special assessments in process at the time of closing can transfer to the new buyer in ways that are not always clearly disclosed in the listing. Your agent needs to verify whether any outstanding assessment balance is being settled by the seller at closing or transferred to you as the incoming owner. This is not a minor point. Assessments in some Fort Lauderdale buildings have run $50,000 to $150,000 per unit in the Post-Surfside environment. Question 4. What is the current monthly association fee, and how has it changed in the past 3 years? A building whose fees have increased 40% or more over 3 years is signaling that reserve funding requirements are being worked through the monthly fee rather than through a lump sum assessment. That's actually the more responsible financial approach, but you need to understand what the ongoing carrying cost is at the current fee level, not the fee that was in place when the unit was purchased by the current seller. Question 5. What is the owner-occupancy ratio, and does the building meet Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac warrantability standards? If you're financing your purchase, this matters for your own loan eligibility. If you're paying cash, it still matters for your eventual sale. A non-warrantable building narrows your future buyer pool to cash purchases only, which affects your exit liquidity in ways that are invisible at the time of purchase and very visible at the time of your sale. Let me give you an honest picture of how a well-run condo runs day to day. The best buildings in this market have amenity packages that are genuinely resort quality and genuinely maintained. Not photographically impressive at opening and deteriorating within a few years, actually maintained at a standard that reflects the monthly fee. Pools that are clean and temperature managed year-round. Fitness centers with current equipment in working condition. Spa facilities that operate operate as described. Concierge staff who know the residents and anticipate needs rather than simply checking in on guests. The social environment in the best buildings is more cohesive than buyers expect. Owner-occupied luxury buildings attract residents who have made a similar lifestyle choice, who value the lock-and-leave capability, the intracoastal or ocean proximity, and the South Florida lifestyle at a level the building delivers. The community that forms in a well-run building with high owner occupancy is a genuine social environment rather than a transient collection of rotating residents. The management responsiveness in the best buildings is immediately apparent and genuinely valuable. Maintenance requests are handled promptly. Common area issues are addressed before they become visible to residents. The financial statements are produced on schedule and made available without request. The building manager knows the unit owners by name. These are the details that seem minor in the abstract and feel significant in the daily experience of living there. The physical environment matters beyond the unit itself. The lobby arrival experience, the elevator quality, the corridor maintenance, the garage. A building where the common areas are maintained to the same standard as the marketed amenities is a building whose management is paying attention. A building where the lobby impresses and the corridors disappoint is a building whose management is prioritizing what prospective buyers see over what residents experience. Now, let's go over where the luxury high-rise market sits in 2026. At the $800,000 to $1.5 million range, buyers have meaningful choice across the Fort Lauderdale condo market, including intracoastal view units in established luxury buildings, newer construction near Las Olas, and larger residences in buildings that were premier assets in their era but now compete against newer developments. This is currently one of the most negotiable segments of the market. Buildings still working through milestone inspections, reserve funding adjustments, or post-Surfside compliance issues are genuinely experiencing longer marketing times and increased seller motivation. Buyers who enter the process with strong comparable sales data and thorough building due diligence often have meaningful negotiating leverage in this tier. At the $1.5 million to $3 million level, the market increasingly separates between buildings with completed inspections, stronger reserve positions, and clear compliance documentation versus buildings still working through structural or financial uncertainty. Buyers are placing greater value on predictability, particularly in premier intracoastal and beachfront locations. In this segment, experienced buyers often make better long-term decisions by prioritizing the quality and stability of the building itself over a specific unit's finishes or floor plan. Above $3 million, much of Fort Lauderdale's luxury condo activity is concentrated in newer or recently developed buildings offering contemporary design, resort-style amenities, and modern infrastructure. Buyers at this level are often paying for a combination of premier waterfront positioning, newer construction, professional management, or reduced near-term structural uncertainty relative to older inventory. While exceptional legacy luxury buildings still compete successfully in this segment, many high-end buyers currently place a substantial premium on newer products with strong documentation, contemporary amenities, and established operational standards. And that wraps up this video. And if you have any questions about the condo market here in South Florida, all of my contact details are below.